3, 4 years ago, I was promoting one of the Tekken movies
Right.
that Steven Seagal. This journalist suddenly said, "Hey, what do you think of Steven Seagal saying you don't know how to punch?"
Steven Seagal, action star, martial arts expert, Hollywood's most notorious troublemaker. In the 90s, his name was everywhere. Movies like Under Siege and The Glimmer Man turned him into a household name. But behind the camera, that's where the real story begins. Because Seagal's reputation off-screen isn't heroic, it's infamous. For years, actors, stuntmen, and even Hollywood legends have whispered the same thing. Steven Seagal is one of the most hated men in Hollywood. The stories are outrageous, the feuds are legendary, and the scandals, they'll make your jaw drop. Today, we're pulling back the curtain on the celebrities who absolutely cannot stand Steven Seagal and the shocking reasons why. Let's start with actor John Leguizamo. His story doesn't just reveal Seagal's dark side, it became a highlight of his Broadway show, Ghetto Clown. Back in 1996, John walked into rehearsals for the thriller Executive Decision. On the very first day, Seagal strutted into the room and announced, "I'm in command. What I say is law." Everyone froze. John couldn't help but laugh. Who even says something like that? But Seagal didn't find it funny. According to John, Seagal slammed him with an Aikido elbow so hard against a brick wall that it knocked the wind right out of him. Gasping on the ground, John could only whisper, "Why? Why?" Years later, he turned the story into comedy, mocking Seagal's stiff fighting style and even his famously strange running. The crowd loved it. But Seagal, not so much. Word got back to him, and he threatened to punch John if they ever met on a red carpet. John laughed it off, saying, "I don't think he's invited to a lot of red carpets anyway." But then he asked the question many still wonder today. How did Seagal go from a working-class martial arts trainer to such an egomaniacal diva? And then there's Charlize Theron. Don't let the model looks fool you. Charlize is tough as nails. She's an Oscar winner, she does her own stunts, and movies like Mad Max. Fury Road and Atomic Blonde prove she's one of the fiercest action stars alive. So when Howard Stern asked her about Seagal, she didn't hold back. Charlize called him out for those awkward viral clips where Seagal just shoves people around. "He's incredibly overweight and can barely fight," she said. "It's ridiculous." But she didn't stop there. She pointed straight to the disturbing allegations made against him by multiple women, including actresses and journalists, and declared, "I have no problem talking about him because he's not very nice to women." Even Saturday Night Live couldn't escape the nightmare. In 1991, Seagal hosted the show, and it's still remembered as one of the worst episodes in SNL history. Cast members later admitted it was a disaster. Tim Meadows said Seagal constantly complained about jokes he didn't understand, mostly because, in his words, he just wasn't funny. Julia Sweeney recalled him locking himself in his dressing room, furious over a sketch that dared to suggest two fake bodybuilders could beat him up. And David Spade summed it up perfectly. Seagal simply did not want to play along. In a show built on humor and improv, that kind of attitude is deadly. The result? Even SNL's executive producer, Lorne Michaels, took a jab at him. During a sketch the following year, when Nicolas Cage worried viewers might think he was the biggest jerk ever on the show, Michaels quickly shot back. No, that would be Steven Seagal. But perhaps the most chilling story comes from actress Juliana Margulies. Early in her career, she was up for a role in Seagal's movie Out for Justice. She agreed to meet with him, expecting a professional audition. Instead, what she walked into was something out of a nightmare. She sat down on a couch in his hotel room and immediately felt something hard under the cushion. Seagal casually told her, "Oh, that's my gun." Then he pulled out a massive black pistol, laid it on the nightstand, and asked if he could read her palm, because apparently he was a healer. With a loaded gun sitting beside him, the situation went from bizarre to terrifying. Juliana made an excuse and bolted out of the room, shaken and horrified. It's a story she still recalls with unease, one that shows just how unsettling a meeting with Seagal could be. Years later, in a 2017 interview, Juliana Margulies looked back on that terrifying meeting with Seagal. She admitted it had taught her one of the most important lessons of her career. Because of him, she refused a similar hotel meeting years later with Harvey Weinstein, a decision that likely spared her from another predator whose crimes would soon become infamous. And Juliana wasn't alone. Actress and TV host Jenny McCarthy shared her own disturbing encounter with Seagal, one that still shocks people today. During her audition for Under Siege 2, Dark Territory, she walked in with script in hand, ready to perform. But instead of focusing on her lines, Seagal had something else in mind. According to Jenny, he started asking her about her Playboy past, and then told her to stand up. Confused, she did. That's when he said, "Take off your dress." Jenny froze. "What?" she asked, stunned. Seagal doubled down. "There's nudity. Take it off." Jenny knew the script. There wasn't any nudity. When she refused, Seagal kept insisting. Overwhelmed, she broke down in tears before finally snapping back. "Rent my Playboy video, you asshole." Then she ran out. But it didn't end there. Jenny claims Seagal followed her out and grabbed her, threatening, "Don't you ever tell anybody." She was shaken, but she never stayed silent. Even years later, Jenny said if she ever saw him again, she'd look him in the eye and say, "You're a fucking pig, and I hope you change your ways." The pattern only continued. In 2017, actress Portia de Rossi, star of Ally McBeal, Scandal, and longtime wife of Ellen DeGeneres, went public with her own story. She recalled a final audition for one of Seagal's films. Once again, the setting wasn't a studio. It was his office. Portia said Seagal told her that chemistry off-screen was important. And then, right in front of her, he unzipped his leather pants. Shocked and horrified, she bolted. When she told her agent, the response was a dismissive joke. "Well, I didn't know if he was your type." Portia later tweeted the story during the height of the hashtag #MeToo movement. Ellen immediately backed her up, writing, "I'm proud of my wife." Together, their voices added fuel to the growing fire that exposed predators in Hollywood. But it wasn't just women who clashed with Seagal. Fighters and stunt performers had their own battles with him. Former MMA champion Randy Couture knows the world of stunts better than most. He started out as one himself. In interviews, he's made it clear that Seagal has a reputation for being reckless, even dangerous, with stuntmen. In 2012, Couture joked during an interview that he'd come out of retirement just to fight Seagal. What was meant as a laugh suddenly turned serious when Seagal responded, saying Couture could face him anytime, any place, where there are no witnesses. Couture later admitted he found the threat more entertaining than intimidating, but his opinion never changed. He said bluntly, "For all the stunt guys out there, Seagal would be that guy. And then there's Ronda Rousey, UFC champion, WWE star, a woman who built her entire career on toughness. Her dislike of Seagal goes way back, and it's personal. Because years earlier, Seagal made the mistake of crossing her uncle, the legendary stuntman and martial artist Gene LeBell. On set, LeBell allegedly choked Seagal out cold, so hard that he humiliated himself in front of the crew. The story spread through Hollywood like wildfire, and Ronda never forgot. In an interview, she smirked and said, "Gene LeBell would destroy Steven Seagal again, even as old as they are now. I'd still put my money on him today." But Ronda Rousey didn't stop at defending her uncle. She fired her own warning shot at Seagal. Half joking, half serious, she said, "If he ever talks bad about Gene to my face, I'd have to make him crap his pants a second time." Even respected legends haven't spared Seagal. Brian Cox, the Scottish powerhouse known for Succession and countless iconic roles, once co-starred with him in The Glimmer Man. In his memoir, Cox roasted Hollywood elites with blunt honesty, calling Johnny Depp overrated, Edward Norton a pain, and David Bowie a better pop star than actor. But his words about Seagal cut the deepest. Steven Seagal is as ludicrous in real life as he is on screen. He acts like he's on a higher plane. But trust me, it's not a higher one. And then there's Jean-Claude Van Damme. For years, the two action stars have been locked in a rivalry. Seagal mocked Van Damme's fighting credentials on TV, sneering, "Can I laugh in your face?" and later bragging that fighting him would be like squashing an ant. But when Van Damme finally confronted him at a Sylvester Stallone party in 1997, challenging him to fight right there in the backyard, Seagal slipped away. Stallone even recalled Van Damme chasing him to a nightclub later that night, only for Seagal to vanish again. In Stallone's words, Van Damme was too strong. Seagal wanted none of it. The rap legend DMX also had his own Seagal horror story. They worked together on Exit Wounds in 2001, and while Seagal publicly praised DMX as thoughtful and respectful, the rapper told a very different tale. He mocked Seagal's spray-on hair, slammed his slave master way of speaking, and admitted he and his wife used to joke about his bizarre behavior. His final verdict? Seagal's an asshole. Yet Hollywood being Hollywood, the two still reunited years later for the flop Beyond the Law. Sometimes business trumps grudges. And believe it or not, even George Foreman, the boxing legend who knocked out giants in the ring and later sold millions of his famous grills, once had his own surprising run-in with Seagal. Even at 69 years old, George Foreman wasn't done fighting. In 2017, the boxing legend shocked fans by challenging Steven Seagal to a 10-round showdown in Las Vegas. Foreman tweeted, "You can use whatever, I'll just use boxing." He even promised to knock Seagal out in 1 or 2 rounds. Talks with Seagal's manager supposedly began, but the fight never materialized. Still, Foreman's message was clear. Age and money hadn't dulled his confidence. He was ready to drop Seagal. But Seagal's critics weren't only in the ring. Actress Rachel Grant, known from Another Day, came forward in 2018 with a chilling story. She claimed that during an audition for Seagal's film Out for a Kill back in 2002, he pressured her to remove her top, and when she refused, he allegedly pulled it down himself. Grant recalled being pushed onto a bed before Seagal suddenly backed off and apologized when she began crying. "It was horrible. I was embarrassed and hurt," she said. Seagal's team denied the allegations outright, but the disturbing story only added to his long list of controversies. Even fellow martial arts icon Chuck Norris wasn't impressed. Asked in a 1993 interview what he thought of Seagal's skills, Norris hesitated before admitting most of Seagal's fight scenes were just quick cuts that made it hard to judge. When pressed on whether Seagal's bad guy persona was just an act, Norris smirked and said, "It carries over into his whole life, unfortunately." And when asked if Seagal had ever dared hurt him, Norris delivered a classic one-liner. "No, he wouldn't dare." More women would come forward too. Actress Rae Dawn Chong described a late-night hotel encounter in the 80s where Seagal allegedly exposed himself, then casually asked if he could touch her blouse because it looked like silk. Chong said she walked out immediately, adding bluntly, "If he had touched me, I would have killed him." And then there's Stephen Tobolowsky, beloved as Ned Ryerson in Groundhog Day. He worked with Seagal on The Glimmer Man and summed up the experience in 3 words: trauma, terror, confusion. Cast as a serial killer, Tobolowsky was floored when Seagal suddenly decided killing villains was bad for his karma. So instead of murdering the serial killer in the script, Seagal just refused to do it. Imagine being on set, about to film your big death scene, only to hear the star say, "Nah, I'm not killing him." Stephen Tobolowsky wasn't about to let Seagal derail the script entirely. Thinking fast, he told Seagal that killing his character wasn't murder, it was redemption. By ending the killer's cycle, Seagal's character would be helping him reincarnate. Seagal paused, thought about it, and said, "I never thought of it that way." The scene went ahead as written, though Seagal later ad-libbed lines that contradicted it, forcing Tobolowsky to return months later just to record a fix. "It was ludicrous," Tobolowsky laughed. "To this day, I don't know what they even kept in the movie." But Tobolowsky wasn't the only one laughing at Seagal's expense. On Jimmy Kimmel Live, Liam Neeson told a story that had the audience in stitches. Asked about Seagal, Neeson fired back instantly, "I want to know who dyes his hair. Stevie Wonder?" The crowd erupted. But behind the joke was real irritation. Neeson revealed he'd once been blindsided in an interview when a reporter asked how he felt about Seagal, claiming Neeson didn't know how to punch. As a former boxer, Neeson bristled. "I know how to punch," he said firmly. Kimmel then added his own jab, quipping, "I don't know if he moved to Russia or if we sent him there and told him not to come back." Pamela Anderson had her own Seagal story, and hers wasn't funny, it was unsettling. When she auditioned for Under Siege, Seagal told her flatly, "If you don't do it, the girl across the hall will, and she'll get the job." Anderson didn't hesitate. Goodbye," she shot back, walking out. Looking back, she credits her instincts for keeping her safe. "If someone answers the door in a bathrobe, don't go in the room," she said. In the end, the role went to another Baywatch alum, Erika Eleniak. Years later, Eleniak joked, "My exit was Pamela Anderson's entrance." And that's the thing. Story after story, feud after feud, from action stars to rappers, athletes, and models. The list of people who can't stand Steven Seagal is almost endless. Some call him a fraud, others call him dangerous, and a few just call him ridiculous. But what do you think? Is Steven Seagal a misunderstood martial arts icon? Or has he truly earned the mountain of bad blood against him? Drop your take in the comments. We read them all.